So, so I look down and that whole area is just literally on fire. Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it entertained me for a bit during lockdown. You know, truth be told, we've been isolated for so long, I don't even know what date it is. No, it's not. No, it's not. Excuse me a minute, I'm just going to check my calendar. Yeah, hi, yeah, I've got to go. Yeah, yeah, a couple of little things that got to do. A little bit of a rush. Bye. Hello everyone and welcome to the 2021 Captain Jimmy Pie Christmas special. More to the point, this should be considered a Cybmas special because a lot of the content this year concerns the Cybermen, although one or two other things may be popping up as well. This year we have a new edition of A Brief History as well as a new fan theories, a collection showcase, 2 live from the workshops and 2 custom figure showcases. And it is the latter of which we are going to kick things off with. But make sure you bring a torch because we're headed into the dark dimension. Hello everyone and welcome to another custom figure showcase, and here today we have 2 more Cybermen. We have the Dark Dimensions Cyberman drone and Cyber Leader. Now these, I have to admit, taking a little bit of creative license with these because there's not that many pictures of them, and the few that there are, there's only maybe one that's very clear, and even then it's not a full picture. There are still some elements which are unknown, especially the feet, so I've had to take a little bit of artistic license there. But essentially what I've done here is I have taken the Axon body, which has obviously recently been used in the Sensorite and the Vord as well, but I've used specifically the Axon one, and then everything else you see on top of it is sculpted. It was a lot of work, you know, a lot of time has gone into doing these, but I think they've come out very well. The boots themselves are actually castings I made of a Tomb Cyber controller, because initially when I finished these I just had the standard sort of flat feet, as it were, of the Axons, and these Cybermen stood really short, and they're actually obviously meant to be quite tall and imposing. So the reason I swapped the boots over again was just to give them that little bit of extra height. I think it looks quite, you know, it looks quite good. It's sort of, I feel like it fits in with the sort of shoulder padded look that they have. The only other things that I've changed on these in terms of swapping over other new parts is the hands are actually from the Series 3 Scarecrow figures, again just because they had a bit more of a claw look to them, you know, rather than a standard hand. It was the best ones to use. But it's the heads that I'm most proud of, or I should say head, because it actually is a case that the drone, which you see coming around on the right now, is the original head, and then the leader is a casting I have made. And essentially what this started out life as was a skull from a Sherlock figure, which I put onto a sort of I sculpted a neck base onto the original Axon figure, and then I super glued the skull on top, and then I just went around filling it out and changing bits on it. And it again is not perfect, but as they have a sort of very skull look to them, it was sort of the, you know, the best that I could do with the design that I had. But I think it has come out very well, and I am very pleased with it. And of course, As I said, I made a casting of it, so I'm pleased to say that castings, you can see here, of my Dark Dimensions Cyberman head will be up for sale on my eBay shop, either when you see this, or very soon after you see this, or in the new year, as this video is originally going out for part of my Christmas special. The only thing that I haven't got on the sculpted head is the handles, but the handles themselves are actually just the simple like cable ties that you would get in a normal figure. So I'm sure many people have tons of those lying about. If you don't, you'll probably have many in future as more figures come out, and I'm pretty sure you can find them online. So, you know, the handles are going to be sort of quite easy to do on that front, but I'm really pleased with how these have come out. Even if I have had to take a little artistic license with them, the actual sort of design of these Cybermen is so iconic and unique that I think it is one that I'm definitely proud to have in my collection. And even though Dark Dimension is debatably canon, as it was never made, it is worth pointing out, for those that don't know, these Cybermen, as the title suggests, actually appear, or the title may suggest, because I don't know if I'm going to put this bit in the title or not, but more specifically the Cyber Leader, I should say, does appear in the comic Supremacy of the Cybermen, which in itself is a little bit of a sort of alternate continuity, but it does sort of imply that these Cybermen have existed at some point, and so you know, to me, these Cybermen are canon. It's just that we've never seen them. So, you know, I think it's a nice one to have, but it's certainly a nice figure to do, and it is a really fun one to make. It's a great one for practicing at sculpting, even if it does take time to get it all right. But it is definitely one that I would highly recommend doing if you're up for the challenge. The end of Series 2 saw something fans had wanted for many years: a showdown between the Daleks and the Cybermen. But does this two-part finale have more influence over other episodes of Series 2 than first may have seemed?
What's that word you use?
Spoilers.
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 Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers. I like that word.
I thought you might.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another Fan Theories. In the Series 2 episode Rise of the Cybermen, the TARDIS crashes out of N-space, crossing the void and landing in Pete's world. The Doctor confirms in the next episode that this event seemingly happened by accident, and that when they leave Pete's world, they will have to close the crack they fell through behind them. But it's never exactly explained how or why the TARDIS fell into the void in the first place. Or is it? So for today's fan theory, we're going to look at how some episodes of Series 2 may be closer linked than you previously thought. In the Series 2 penultimate episode, Army of Ghosts, despite the crack that the TARDIS fell through having seemingly been closed, the Cybermen managed to come back through from Pete's world by following the Dalek's void ship, which they claim broke down the barriers between worlds, allowing them to follow. The Dalek's void ship was created by the cult of Skaro so that they, along with the Genesis Ark, could hide in the void to escape the end of the last Great Time War before emerging back into the universe and ensuring the continuation of the Dalek race. So what if the TARDIS crashing was actually the result of colliding with the Dalek's void ship as it broke back into the universe from the void? However, this collision caused both ships to fall through the void and into Pete's world. Whilst the TARDIS eventually returns through the crack it fell through, sealing it up behind it, the Dalek's void ship, specifically having been created to travel out of one universe, through the void, and into another, creates a crack in Pete's world, travels through the void, and breaks back into N-space. The crack is later discovered on both sides by Torchwood, one in Pete's world and one in N-space. However, the Torchwood of Pete's world was infiltrated by the Cybermen, and that is how they used the crack to get back through into N-space. Now, there is another popular theory that perhaps the cracks mentioned are in fact the cracks in time from Series 5. But personally, I prefer this theory as it fits into the general Series 2 narrative and explains why one crack can be sealed up, but others can be opened due to the power of the Dalek's void ship. And also, the TARDIS itself, as the originator of said cracks in time, would have noticed, I think, if those cracks had originated from itself. But that brings to a close another fan theories. In recent years, the customs community has reached new highs, with many fans jumping into the world of 3D printing. And thanks to the amazing work of NDW Designs and Co, I have been able to make some Cybermen which I certainly would have never attempted to make before. Hello everyone, and welcome to another live from the workshop, and today we're going to be doing some more Cybermen customs. We are going to be doing two real-time Cybermen from the webcast of the same name. So here we have the two bodies. The heads are currently not here because I am currently making a head peg, so I'm having to leave them to one side to dry off. But essentially what we have here are the cyber controller and a normal Cyberman. Now, obviously, quite a lot has been done here extensively in terms of the sculpting, the reasons for which I will go into now. And there's also a couple of other little details on these that I do just want to cover as well. So overall, the base figure is a silence figure because it had the same sort of, it had the right kind of scale. Because these Cybermen are quite tall, much taller than most other Cybermen. But even so, I've had to shorten down the legs slightly, on, as you can see here. And obviously I've removed the jacket as well, and I've also shaved off the tie under here, which you can't see. But I've done all of that. And then obviously over the top you can see all the sculpting I've done. But then these grey bits and also the head sculpts are actually from NDW Design. Nathan David Ward was selling them as at the time of recording this, and possibly by the time you see it, I'm not sure if he is still selling them. I will have a link to his Instagram where he does his sales and things like that, and then other links in the description, so please go and check those out. But those are what I've used, you know, that's where the collars and the heads have come from. So I can't take credit for those, but they are absolutely wonderful designs, especially the heads. You know, you'll see those in a bit when I get to doing them more. But obviously in terms of the overall design, like I said, I've sculpted on a lot. But I've decided as well to take a bit of artistic license with these, because firstly, obviously they were in the webcast and we have sort of, you know, stills, pictures of them from the webcast, but as well as the pictures there were also some renders done, and my sculpting work is sort of made to reflect a sort of combination of the different versions of these Cybermen as such. So there's elements of the CGs, there's elements of the, you know, the actual webcast, you know, pictures and things like that. But the other thing that I'm going to do in terms of colours is, rather than painting them a standard silver, I'm going to go for a bit of a combination of colours as well. So all of the black and the torso, basically all of the base silence figure, I'm going to paint in a sort of dark silver / light gunmetal grey. Then all of the yellow actually sculpted on, I'm going to paint the normal standard silver. But what I'm going to try to do, and I say try because I don't know if this is going to work until I try to do it, is I've still got some of my mirrorist mirror paint left over, which I previously used on my Silver Nemesis Cyberman. And so what I'm going to try to do, hopefully it will take to the resin print, 3D print of the heads and the shoulders, and also onto the milliput. But then the shoulders and the shoulder piece and the heads I'm going to do in that mirror paint to try and make them stand out a bit more. As I said, don't know if that's going to work, so we will wait and see. But first of all, let's get on to painting the overall Underdark base. So as they come round here, we have the finished real-time Cybermen. So I cannot remember if I said this at the start of the video, but I'm going to give you another quick figure breakdown. I think I've already done this, but I know a lot of people skip to the end. So overall, it is a silence figure, but the head, most of the shoulder pieces, or at least the top parts of the shoulder pieces on these, were designed by Helno Souza and printed by Nathan David Ward on Instagram. Please go and check them out. They do some absolutely amazing work. But I'm really pleased with my paintwork on these. The only bit that hasn't come out quite as well as I expected is the lower part, the bit that I had to sculpt myself, typically. Of the shoulder pieces, because I've had to sculpt them, and obviously they are a much different consistency to the rest of the shoulder pieces, but overall they've come out pretty well. You know, I don't think it stands out all that much difference. But obviously, as I said before, you know, I've taken a bit of artistic liberty with these in terms of the design of the bodies and things like that, but they've come out very, very well. I'm very pleased with them. Obviously, these Cybermen are much taller in comparison to other Cybermen. You know, if I just bring in to hold here, because I don't want to put it on the plinth for the sake of knocking it over, but if I bring in here, you know, a standard Cyberman, you can see how much taller they are. That's basically in line with them now. It's in line with the leader as it comes around, so you can see that they are, you know, much taller. But I really do love the design of these, you know, and the work on the head sculpts has been absolutely superb. You know, it has come out so well, and I love the way that the mirror paint has just made the tops of them that little bit more shiny. I'm really glad that did take to the resin. I was slightly worried that wouldn't work, but I'm certainly glad it has. It does look, they do look absolutely fantastic. And, you know, in terms of getting the height right, even though I've had to shorten them slightly using the silent figures as a base, certainly still does work very well and makes it look very good, I think. The origins of the Cybermen has been a hotly debated topic for many years. However, it is now widely accepted that they are the subject of parallel evolution. That is to say, they have no singular origin. As the 12th Doctor himself once put it, they begin wherever there are people. But just how many origins have they had? Well, let's find out.
What's that word you use?
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers. Spoilers. I like that word.
I thought you might.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of A Brief History. So today we're going to be kicking off the brief history of the Cybermen. But even before we begin, we have something of a problem. Because whilst many fans will recognise what a Cyberman is in general terms, when you start to separate them out, it actually gets a little bit more complicated. The Cybermen are known to have many different origins as a form of parallel evolution stemming from many different species. As the 12th Doctor himself put it,
they always get started. They happen everywhere there's people.
This means that whilst they are classed as Cybermen in general, there are in fact many different subspecies of Cybermen. As such, this A Brief History series will be done in a slightly different format, with each part focusing on a different subspecies. But for the first episode, we're going to focus on their many different origins, just to give you an idea of how many subspecies there actually are. Now for this, I'm only going to cover subspecies that have been categorically stated to be the Cybermen. So any other species or beings which share similar characteristics, such as the Retribution from the Big Finish audio The Skyman, but are not explicitly confirmed to be Cybermen themselves, will not be included in this video. I'm also not going to include any subspecies that have originated from the Cybermen themselves, such as the Cybermasters seen in the Timeless Children, or other converted species, such as the Cyberlurians from the comic Supremacy of the Cybermen. Whilst these beings are a subspecies in their own right, they do not denote a single origin point for the Cybermen, i.e. they did not evolve from a non-cyber species. They were a non-cyber species that were converted by the Cybermen. Now with that all being said, there are some conflicting accounts of some of the origins. So as with other A Brief Histories, all information will be given in this video, and it is up to the debate of the audience as to what is or isn't considered canon. The Cybermen created on Mondas are actually some of the more complex in terms of their origins, as there are several different accounts of how they came about. The earliest chronologically in-universe example of the Mondas Cybermen was given in the comic The Cybermen. These Cybermen existed alongside the Lizard Kings, who were the Mondasian equivalent to Earth's Silurians, and also equivalent to the Sea Devils on prehistoric Mondas. Originally ape servant-like creatures, they were cybernetically augmented by the other races, eventually superseding these other species to become the dominant race. Eventually, however, these Cybermen died out before being discovered later by Mondasian archaeologists, who presumably recreated these Cybermen from the remains. The more widely accepted and generally more well-known origin story of the Mondas Cybermen is told in the Big Finish story Spare Parts. In this story, these Cybermen's origins are revealed to be the result of the native Mondasians beginning to convert themselves in order to cope with Mondas itself becoming less and less hospitable, and in part revealing that the Fifth Doctor was partly responsible for their creation. Despite his attempts to try and prevent any further Cybermen being created, he ultimately failed, leading to the remaining Mondasians being converted into Cybermen. Whilst the generally held view is that the Cybermen who colonised Telos were in fact from Mondas originally, according to the account given in the novelisations of The Moonbase and Tomb of the Cybermen, they originated on the planet Telos, possibly in parallel with Mondas, after the planet's native inhabitants sought to achieve immortality through the use of cybernetics, eventually upgrading themselves almost entirely. These first Cybermen became aware of their lack of emotions and became fixated on becoming more and more powerful, and, depending on the continuity you follow, possibly later colonised Mondas. Due to the contradictive nature of this particular origin story, it has since been widely accepted that the Telos and Mondas Cybermen are indeed one and the same, and the continuity of the Mondas Cybermen colonising Telos in Attack of the Cybermen is in fact the true continuity. However, the mention of Telos as a separate origin point for the Cybermen in The Doctor Falls once again leaves this a little unclear. According to an account given in the comic The World Shapers, the Vord of Marinus acquired a World Shaper and used it to accelerate time, and in doing so turned themselves into Cybermen. This account also stated that Marinus was in fact an earlier name for Mondas, which later went on to become known as Planet 14. However, both the novel Iceberg and the archive tapes imply that Mondas and Planet 14 were different planets after a group of Cybermen from Mondas moved to Planet 14. This is also backed up by the TV episode The Doctor Falls, in which the 12th Doctor explicitly states that Mondas, Planet 14 and Marinus as individual examples of parallel evolution of the Cybermen.
Mondas, Telos, Earth, Planet 14, Marinus.
Which brings us on to one of the most recent examples of the Cybermen's origins. These Cybermen came into being on a Mondasian colony ship, which was suspended before a black hole. Due to the time dilation difference between the top and bottom of the ship, however, some colonists resorted to converting themselves into Cybermen, both because their area of the ship had become less and less habitable, but also to extend their lifespans in order to make the long journey through the time dilation to take control of the ship. Beginning as Cybermen which looked similar to those originating on Mondas, they continued to upgrade and evolve themselves through other guises, which appeared similar to other designs seen in other examples of their evolution. Known as Operation Exodus, the Harold Saxon incarnation of the Master also played a part in these events, as did his future incarnation known as Missy. But this wouldn't be the first, or should that be last time, that the Master was involved in the genesis of a group of Cybermen. The previously mentioned incarnation of the Master, known as Missy, created her own army of Cybermen through the 3W Institute. On the surface, it appeared to be an organisation which preserved people's still conscious bodies after they died by submerging their skeletons in a preservative liquid known as dark water. In reality, however, they were converted into Cybermen, with their exoskeletons hidden by the dark water and their minds uploaded into the Neversphere, where Missy had their emotions removed before downloading them back into their cyber bodies. The many different origins of the Cyberman was also not unique to N-Space, as they evolved in many different parallel universes. In a parallel universe more commonly known as Pete's World, the Cybermen were created by John Lumick, CEO of Cybmas Industries. Created originally as a means to prolong his own life, Lumick's Cybmas Cybermen eventually came to believe that all of humanity needed to be upgraded in order to preserve all information and remove all weaknesses of the human form. Another group of Cybermen originating in a parallel universe were encountered by Unit and the War Master in the Big Finish box set, The Cyber Reality. These Cybermen sought to upgrade the entire multiverse through use of their cyber mainframe, a network which allowed communication between all cyber units. But with those last two short entries, if you want to know more, go and check out the media. We have it. All parallel evolutions of the Cybermen, I think. And I say that because the Cybermen have so many different origins, it is possible that I may have missed one, or that another origin story will come up at a later date after I have made this video, and obviously will not be covered in it. So whilst at the time of recording this video is up to date, please check out the pinned comment for any future updates to this video, as they may occur in future. Now, in the cases of some of the multiple origins, don't worry if this was a lot to take in. I will be doing a mini recap at the start of each subspecies to explain their origins again. But for now, I hope that whets your appetites, and we will be delving into each subspecies of the Cybermen in their own videos, with some new editions of A Brief History very soon. One of the most debated origins for the Cybermen is that they came from the Void. But debate aside, this design for the Cybermen is certainly a unique one. So I guess I should have one for my collection. Hello everyone, and welcome to another live from the workshop. So today we're going to be doing another Cyberman custom. This is going to be a Cyberman from the comic The World Shapers, which, as some of you may know, or some of you may not know, is the comic in which it talks about how a possible future for the Cybermen, or a version of parallel evolution, is where the Cybermen become Void. And there are various sort of stages of Void Cybermen seen throughout the story, but their final form, as it were, is seen in the form of what becomes the cyber controller of the Cyber Void, and that is the custom that I am going to make today. So we have here a Tomb Cyberman, which doesn't have the head. At the time of recording, the head is still a work in progress, but by the time you see this video, it has obviously been finished because you're seeing the video, and you will see it soon. Onto which I have put some cat kind nun, if you want to call them, gloves, just to give the hands a bit more of the right shape with as many fingers. And then obviously on the torso, I have sculpted on the new torso pieces on the torso. So what I'm actually going to be doing for this is to give the overall body a bit more of a metallic-y bluish hue, as is seen in the sort of colour strips of the comic, and then all of the piping and everything else is going to be done in a silver. So first things first is going to be to give it an overall repaint, so let's get straight on with that. here is my finished World Shapers Cyberman. So, as usual, very pleased with how this has come out, but I really am pleased with how this has come out because the paintwork, especially the slightly sort of metallic bluish grey, was very difficult to do because, you know, it was originally I just did a simple greyish blue, you know, in a sort of matte colour, but then I wanted it to look a bit more metallic, so I mixed in a bit of silver paint. But the problem is with silver acrylic, you know, it often makes paint much thinner, so it was a lot more difficult to do. So in the end, what I resorted to was just painting it the overall blue grey, and then just gave it a quick brush over with the simple silver paint, just to give it that metallic coating, and it has come out really, really well. Yeah, I'm also very pleased with the sculpting work on this, particularly on the front. I'm especially pleased with the sculpting work on this one, on the torso, because this is one that I actually I did this figure many years ago, and then I never finished it, and I can't remember what I ended up using the parts for in the end. I think I might have ended up using them to do my Tomb Cyber Controller custom. But in the end, you know, I've done the same sort of procedure that I did before, but obviously I've had a bit more experience with the sculpting, so that's come out a lot better. And I am very pleased with the with how the head sculpt's come out as well. Overall, the head sculpt is actually a chip from Series 2 figure, but I've cut off a lot of the original sort of face and hair and the hat, and smoothed it all out. And then added on you know, the smoothed over the features with Milliput to make it look a bit more the right size and shape. And then for the handles, I've just used some simple bits of wire combined with a bit of Milliput, just to, you know, make it look a bit more sort of fluid in terms of how they come out of the head. They're not perfect in terms of their shape, but I'm still pretty pleased with how they've come out. And then obviously I've also used some spare piping to do the bits on the shoulders as well. Obviously, if you've got a Tomb Cyber Controller spare, this is a very good body to use. Obviously, I've used a new normal Tomb Cyberman, but a Tomb Cyber Controller would work better because you haven't got to do all the sculpting on the torso. You've already got the shoulder bits on there. Obviously, the boots are different. You've got shoes on that, but again, you know, a little bit of artistic license there. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the finished product. In terms of the head sculpt, I am going to try and make some head sculpts to put up for sale on my eBay. But at the time of recording, and probably at the time you're watching this video, they probably won't be up yet because I'm not going to actually do the casting for them until the new year. But I'm going to try and do some test castings, I should say, over Christmas. And I will know then if it's going to work. It's the handles that worry me. I'm not sure how well they're going to come out. You know, and it's difficult to. I could sculpt the head without the handles, and then people add in the wire themselves. But where I've added on some sculpting on the wires, it does mean that they are a bit of a necessity. So we'll have to wait and see. But either way, if they are made available, there will obviously be a link in the pinned comment to my eBay. If they are unsuccessful, I will put a thing in the pinned comment confirming that sadly they haven't worked out. But even if they don't work out this time, I'm gonna, you know, keep at it and see what things I can do, because it is one that I know would be popular, and I know people would like. So, you know, even if I do fail this time, I will still have a go at trying to make some head sculpts for them, and hopefully making them available in future for people to buy. Fingers crossed the sculpting and moulding goes well. Earlier this year there was an influx of prototypes making the rounds, and I was lucky enough to be one of the people to grab a few of them, which has left me with a nice little collection of Dalek prototypes. I've showed off a few I've got already in my past videos, but here are the ones that I have more recently acquired. So today we're going to be looking at several Dalek prototypes, and we are going to go from left to right. So first up we have this Dalek here, which is a Mechanus Dalek prototype, i.e. a prototype version of one of the more recent character option exclusive Mechanus Daleks. Now obviously the first time I saw this was one of the ones that was floating around on eBay for a while, and I was slightly skeptical about the fact that it had been completely spray painted silver, or at least the one in the picture had been completely spray painted silver. And in the past and more recently I had reason to suspect that some of the prototypes that this particular seller had were not necessarily genuine. So, you know, I'm always very careful about these sorts of things, but it wasn't that expensive, so I thought it was worth just biting the bullet and getting one, because even if it did arrive and it was just one that had been resprayed up, then, you know, it would have been great for spares and I could have made something else out of it once I'd stripped the silver paint off. But I was pleased to find out that it was indeed real. So most notably the differences on it are there's a little bit of paint off the neck rings where you can see the bare plastic underneath, same with the globes here. Also the spheres that hold the ball joints in on the arms. The eye stalk itself is obviously clear, but the thing that really clinched it was the lights, and the lights themselves are, as you can see, clear. Now I know a couple of other people who got these, they, on their versions, the eyes were sprayed silver. When I got these, as you can see, they were clear. And in a way, it was kind of fortuitous that this happened to somebody else as well. When it arrived, one of the dome lights was, in fact, had snapped off. And I have since glued it back on. You know, just because I didn't want to risk losing it. Normally I would try to keep these as in condition as I get them as I can, but every now and again there's just a few little fixes, simple fixes can be done. And when I got this, the underside of the eye obviously was the one bit that didn't have any spray on it, because especially around this eye there's a little bit of silver paint on there. And it was fortuitous that you could see that it was in fact, you know, that it was in fact clear. And again, someone else who got one of these said that theirs had arrived with one of the eyes off. But again, luckily, theirs was actually sprayed silver, but where it had broken off, you could see underneath that it was indeed sprayed silver. That it was indeed clear. Sorry. So it does throw some of sort of validity to us. And the other thing as well is if we flip up the base, normally on these bases you would have a stamp, serial number that's actually stamped into the base, and obviously this one doesn't have that. The wheels, as you can see here, the wheels here are black, but then the wheels here are silver. So it is like it has been resprayed, but you know it's not uncommon for that to happen, for them to do sort of test, you know, paints and things like that just to get it all one colour. But like I said, the fact that it's got these bare pieces and you know, the lights themselves are clear rather than the red, it does sort of throw up some validity to this, which is lovely. And it's a lovely piece to have, especially because the actual figure itself is a very limited edition. Next in line here we have this Necros Dalek prototype from Revelation of the Daleks. I always get that confused with Resurrection, but yes, this is from Revelation of the Daleks. So again, the differences on this are very subtle, so I might have to point them out. But firstly, foremostly, the spheres are gold rather than white. The eye stalk is actually a resurrection eye stalk, as you can see. It's got the tiered rings, as I call them, that go up. The dome lights are the more cone-shaped versions, which are smooth overall. And again, the most noticeable thing about this one that shows its validity, if we flip it up, you can see there is no stamp underneath. Again, this has come from a different seller to the other ones that I got, but again, it's somebody who I've bought from before many times. They're the same person that I got my Captain Jack and painted Yana prototypes from. So, you know, I know this person very well. They've always got a couple of good things, and this is definitely one that it's a nice one, because it's nice to have one that does just look like a normal Dalek, but again, it's just got those subtle differences which just make it stand out a little bit more from the other ones in the other releases, as it were. Next up, we have another classic Dalek. However, this one you can see a few more of the bare details on this one. Obviously, the eye stalk and the plunger are the same clear plastic. The neck rings, midsection, gun, sphere holder joint things, and the two spheres on the side are obviously the bare plastic, which you can see as well. It's slightly different, a difference in tone, but it is worth pointing out. I don't know whether this is captured on camera, but the slats are in fact a silver molded plastic rather than being sprayed. There is a difference between the two, but these are just a bare plastic, and if we flip it up as well, you can again see that there is no stamp anywhere on it. There's obviously the usual copyright information, blah, 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 but there's no stamp or print or anything that would, you know, mark it out as a finished piece. It took me a little while, I have to say, to work out what or which set this Dalek is from, but through the combination of parts, I'm inclined to say that this is, assuming that it isn't a mismatch of different parts of a Dalek, which again, you know, it wouldn't be impossible for that to happen, but assuming this is a prototype for one of the B&M sets, which is why it would have been floating around more recently, I believe that this is most likely the Black Supreme from the Chase set or the Master Plan set. No, I think it might be the Master Plan set. Either way, it's specifically because of the combination of the dome light and the classic gun with the extra rings around it that just makes it stand out as the closest approximation of combination of parts to that design, if that makes sense. Which again, you know, if that's the case, I mean, it's a nice piece to have either way. But if it is a you know, a prototype for a Supreme, always nice to have something that's again just that little bit different. And lastly, here we have a little ditty 375 Dalek. This is the Guard Dalek. But there's a few interesting differences on here. The first thing is the gold is much brighter than I've seen on other releases, and also the gold between the slats and the globes matches, which again on the released versions I know there is a tonal difference. At first I did actually think that this was a slightly darker, more chocolate brown for the Assault Dalek. But I think what it is the bronze is the same colour as the standard 375 Daleks, but because the gold is brighter, it makes the bronze look darker. So the bronze hasn't changed, it is in fact the gold. Next thing is that the eye stalk, as you can see, has no blue pupil on it. Not impossible that is just a simple factory error, oversight, something like that. I know I have seen that on a couple of boxed, still mint in box ones, that was missed off. So could be that they've missed that there, but it's just another of those little things that gives it that little bit more validity. I think, you know, that it's not been entirely finished. The next thing, which is quite interesting, is the gun, the cannon or whatever you want to call it, has a white end to it, which as far as I'm aware the released ones didn't have. Some of them may have done though, because there is a promo picture of one of these 375 Daleks in which it has a white end. And so I don't think this is the same Dalek that's using the promo pictures, first of all, because the one using the promo pictures has a blue iris for the eye. But it does make me wonder, maybe this was an idea that they thought to do and then they just decided actually it's, you know, it's one more bit of paint application, let's not bother. I don't know. But it's interesting that that's on there. And lastly, if we turn this up, once again, you can see there is no serial numbers under here, but there is a slight difference here for the 375 ones, which I just want to quickly go into. On the 375 ones, rather than stamp the serial number on there, they would usually print it, I think usually here, so I've seen it down there sometimes, but it's usually around here on the wheelbase. And the thing with the 375 ones especially, with the 5-inch ones, with any Daleks really, when it comes to prototypes, I always ask to see the underside of the base, because invariably what you can sometimes see on the 5-inch ones is where somebody's tried to file off the number that's been stamped in, or fill it in and file it down. And even if it's been resprayed, you can still see the scuff marks of where they've tried to sand it off or something. And the same can be said with the 375 ones, but obviously it's a printed on stamp, which, you know, can be removed with paint remover. When I've done some 375 customs, you know, I've stripped off the bases original colour so I can respray them, and it is possible. However, you do tend to get a bit of discoloration on the plastic then, so it is again a noticeable thing. You can see sometimes where it has been taken off. You'll notice that there are the stains around it. Obviously, the thing that then can be done is just simply respraying it. But the other thing that you tend to find as well is, again, I've tried this myself as a trial. I want to say as a trial method to see what sort of resistance the paint has, because again, over the years I've become very skeptical when it comes to buying prototypes, and I really do sort of look very carefully at things before I buy them now, because what I've found is even if the serial number is wiped off, there would still be a slight imprint of letters, and even if it is just resprayed, the slight raised of the paint will still be there on the letters. And if you get right up close with a magnifying glass or a microscope, you can actually still make out the letters, or even if it's been wiped off, bits of the letters, or sometimes even discoloration through the plastic. It isn't guaranteed, I have to say, but it is one of those things that I've learnt to look out for. So a little helpful hint for anybody there who might come across any 375 prototype pieces: always ask to see close-ups of the base and get a better look at them, because whilst you can't guarantee that it is a definitive method of finding out whether a prototype is genuine or not, it is the small telltale signs to look out for. So there we have all of the Dalek prototypes for this piece. I have to say, of all of these, I think my favourite is the Mechanist Dalek, simply because you know, it's already limited, because it's a character options exclusive, so to actually have a prototype version of that is absolutely fantastic. It's definitely one that is nice to have in my collection, because it really is one of those ones that it does just stand out that little bit more. Well, we're almost at a close again for this year, but I think we've got time for one more video. The presence of the Cybermen in the Time War is something that is still very uncharted. However, in more recent years, the comic Supremacy of the Cybermen gave us an idea of how they looked, or would have looked. It's complicated. Read the comic, enjoy this custom. Hello everyone, and welcome to another custom figure showcase. So today we are going to be looking at another Cyberman, but this is my Time War Cyberman, more specifically from the comic Supremacy of the Cybermen. Now these particular Cybermen appear in the one-page sort of lead-up that was the War Doctor's piece, which sees an alternate continuity where, because, spoiler alert, the Cybermen have taken over history, they start appearing at different places, and one of the places they appear at is the barn, just as the War Doctor is about to detonate the moment. And these particular Cybermen have a rather unique design. Their body is very similar to the Cybmas era Cybermen, but the head is actually a unused design for the concept piece for the Cybermen as they're originally going to appear in Series 2. So obviously overall I have used the Cybmas Cyberman as a base, but you can see there's various places where I've made a lot of sculpting differences. Obviously on the shins I've sculpted some new parts. I've sculpted a little bit on the back of the arms, also on the top of the arms. The back, as you can see, I've had some new sort of shoulder plates and things put on. The midsection is also sculpted to be sort of tiered, as is the front section. The entire front piece, most notably, has this new open chest look, which is obviously made to be, you know, the sort of light as you would see inside. But obviously the head as well is in fact my own custom one, which I have made myself. So for this, I basically took the standard Cybmas head, cut all of the gubbins off it that was originally there, and then sculpted my own head onto the top of it. I'm very pleased with how that's come out, and then the handles are also, as I have used on one of my other Cybermen I've put up recently, or you may or may not have seen my Dark Dimensions Cybermen. For the handles I use the same sort of standard cable ties that you would get in most figures, and I'm pleased to say as well that I have made a sculpt of this head, and this will be going up shortly, or may already be up at the time of watching this video, onto my eBay if you are interested. I have managed to get it so that it's got the peg in it to put straight onto the Cybmas body. One word of caution I would say is that the peg on the Cybmas head may have to be sanded down slightly, because obviously the original head is made of a more flexible plastic. This is made of a hard resin, so if you tried to force this onto the head, then it might end up actually shattering this. So word of caution to anyone interested in getting one. I will be putting this on the listing as well, but the peg may need to be sanded down slightly for that. But I am really pleased with how this Cyberman has come out. There are a couple of others from Supremacy of the Cybermen that I am currently working on. A couple I have finished, and one I'm planning to start very soon. But they really have come out very well. And I personally, like I said, is the canon of Supremacy of the Cybermen is that these Cybermen are a sort of alternate Time War continuity. But personally, we still don't know really what happened with the Cybermen during the Time War. We know bits and pieces, and there's been references, but personally I like to think that whilst those particular events in Supremacy of the Cybermen may have been alternate, the Cybermen themselves are still period specific. So I still class this as a Time War Cyberman, and I think that this is how the Cybermen probably did look during the Time War, especially because the face itself has a very gas mask look to it, and I think it does look sort of very warlike, and I like to think that, you know, that it does have a very war feel to it. And obviously, as we know, you know, there's the debate that obviously the Cybermen from Pete's world evolved as the Cybmas Cyberman, but then debatably another version of those Cybermen also existed in the standard, the main world. So perhaps this is the first iteration of the cyber design. You know, you could put any kind of theory you want to this, but personally I like to think that this is a canon design, because I really do like it, and I think it's a really nice looking Cyberman design as well. You know, it's one that I'm very pleased with, and I certainly think that you know, the design in the comics are nice. You know, as I said, I've taken my own little artistic liberty with this, but I'm pretty pleased with a sort of semi-original version of my own of a Time War Cyberman. Well, that brings to a close the end of another Christmas special, but I will be back in the new year with something very special. Be sure to tune in to see that, and maybe a teaser or two may pop up on my social media before then. Of course, these videos will be up individually over the next day or so, but it just leaves me to say, I hope you all enjoyed this video. Have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. All that stuff I usually say with the Patreon, I'm going to skip that because it's Christmas. Which leaves me just to say, I salute you all, and I will see you with another video very soon.